So, Wallace and Gromit, Vengeance Most Fowl, is actually a Wallace and Gromit sequel to The Wrong Trousers, which features the return of the villain Feathers McGraw. And, the Wallace and Gromit films, if you're kind of like the short films too, these films are almost kind of like critic proof because you can't really judge them in terms of like a story because there isn't much of them. It's mostly just a fun little scenario, and then you just kind of judge it by how great like the slapstick and the physical gags are, and all the wondrous stop motion animation is that's assembled around it. Which actually, like, it's much easier to watch that type of film as opposed to there Aardman Animation's other films like like Chicken Run, where I did start thinking a little bit more about the story. Wallace and Gromit films are always just such a delight here. So you almost kind of got to grade like a Wallace and Gromit film differently from other Aardman Animations, and you kind of got to look at it based on how many great gags there are and how many times you smiled and you just appreciated the funny little bits between this comical duo. And for the most part, I actually really dug it. I love like the little creativity they had here and there. I love the weird technology that Wallace uses. And that's like the best way I can describe the film. It's like it's not as great as I consider the Were-Rabbit movie probably my favorite of Wallace and Gromit, just because it feels like it has a lot of creativity oozing through it, and it feels like it's trying to be a monster film, which was a lot of fun. But yeah, Vengeance Most Foul is very much like The Wrong Trousers in the fact that it features Wallace, once more he's voiced here by Ben Whitehead, who he has devised a new robot that he wants to help out with Gromit in his gardening. So he develops this little robot called the Norbot, which is a gnome that he calls a smart gnome in a very kind of cute way. And it's basically a gnome that does all of the garden work. And of course, Gromit is a little bit angered by this because, it automates, something that he enjoys doing. But since Gromit can't communicate with Wallace in that way, he kind of struggles to make that point known. But I do love the fact how even though Wallace has kind of like does screw up stuff for Gromit, like you can tell that he does very much care about him. So that by the time the film does get to that, emotional resolve between the two of them, it is sweet. And you do expect it, but it is still, charming to see on screen. But of course, Feathers McGraw is the villain in this, so once he, starts learning about the Norbot and how Wallace has been using it all around town, he devises a way to basically hack the Norbot to do his bidding and ends up making this whole army of these robots to enact his revenge and steal a jewel. Typical criminal stuff for the silent villain here. And yeah, it is. And I will answer the base question. Yes, it is cute. It does have a lot of great physical comedy here and there. It is clever. I do mean like it's clever in like every way it could be. Like at one point, Feathers McGraw is hacking into Wallace's computer, and I love the fact how Wallace has like a fairly easy password to decipher that even when like Feathers McGraw figures it out, like he gets into Wallace's computer and this little voice comes up with Wallace saying like, "Hey, you're inside my computer. How about that?" Just wonderful, absurd little details like that, and it never feels like it's trying too hard for a laugh here. And that also goes for a lot of the supporting characters here, which are also a bit endearing. Like one person who is investigating Wallace being accused of crimes because of his Norbots is a police officer called PC Mukherjee, who's voiced by Lauren Patel, and she's very plucky. She's looked down upon by her her superior of Chief Inspector Albert McIntosh, played by Peter Kay, who just he's a very like stuffy bureaucrat, but PC she just kind of. She just kind of like, takes it, she takes it upon herself to try to solve these cases best she can, even though she doesn't really have much help. So she's very much an endearing character, and there's rarely a moment where you feel like anyone here is being too cynical or, being too vindictive, aside from Feathers McGraw. And maybe the Norbots, even though the Norbots are mostly like they're programmed to be evil, and they're programmed to be smart, and they're just kind of more like innocent weapons being used in all this. The Norbots do have like a great dry delivery voiced by well, it's not quite dry, it's more a little bit more eccentric, voiced by Reese Shearsmith, who does a pretty good job making these robots sound mechanical, but also having a little bit of an absurd personality. So there isn't too much to say on this film. Like, it does, I did worry a little bit that this was trying to be a movie based on one of the previous Wallace and Gromit that was a short that wasn't feature length, and this film it's very much feature length. It's not like 2 hours, but it does run about the length of a typical film, and it doesn't outstay its welcome. That was like my biggest concern with this film, is that, you know, the antics and the slapstick and all the goofy little bits between, you know, the dog and his owner were just going to wear out their welcome, and thankfully they don't. And I think it helps that it just keeps building on itself. It never relies on one gimmick to keep it going. Like, it never relies on like the absurdity of the gnomes, because then it, you know, goes back to Feather McGraw. It never relies on Feather McGraw's evil deeds, because then it also is about, you know, proving Wallace's innocence. So you have a little bit of a fugitive angle going on there. The humor always feels like it's clever, and it's not trying to make like obvious parodies. And it also keeps you engaged, because I do love how Feathers McGraw's heist is never so simplistic. Like, there is like a greater reveal for why he wants to get back at Wallace, and particularly why he wants to break into his house, for, you know, basically to continue his crimes, more or less. And it's pretty clever. It's like, it's not like, you know, like a huge twist or like major reveal. But, you know, for a younger audience, it's actually going to be one of those very aha moments. But, you know, it never bores on that angle, just because even though, you know, the grand reveal of what Feathers McGraw's doing might not be that much of a twist, the cleverness throughout of just all the inventions and the funny things that the Norbots do, and Gromit's expressions, and all the funny contraptions in the house that go awry, and the chase sequences that they have are all fun and fast and clever, that, you know, there was never a moment that I was bored with this film. So I guess like the real question is, like, you know, where does this film stack among all the Wallace and Gromit films? And I would say it's a little bit in the middle there. I place like Were Rabbit at the top, and then obviously you know, The Wrong Trousers beneath it. And I would say it's a little bit close here, but I think maybe like Vengeance Most Foul is right below The Wrong Trousers. But it's very close, just because both of those Wallace and Gromit films are very clever. They're very fast, and they do have like a bit of like thriller angles going to it, which are, you know, just making them so much more exciting. So yeah, one more. I doubt this is going to surprise anyone, but yeah, I really did like Wallace and Gromit: Vengeance Most Foul. Not as much as like top tier Wallace and Gromit, but still, you know what you're getting into if you go into these films, and it still has that cleverness, and it doesn't wear out its welcome. And I guess it just proves, you know, that Wallace and Gromit, they can still hold a feature length film. And yeah, I look forward to seeing what the dog and the man dog duo do next in their next animated film.